Hello friends! Today's video is about passing the star. We're going to start with the WFTDA rules, move into application scenarios, look at a practice drill that we could do, and some final reminders. Starting with the rules. Passing the star. A team's jammer may transfer their role to the team's pivot by successfully completing a legal star pass. A legal star pass requires the jammer to hand the star to their team's pivot while both skaters are upright, in bounds, in play, while neither skater is en route to or in cue for the penalty box. Upon releasing the star into the pivot's grasp, the role of jammer is transferred to the pivot. The new jammer takes over for the previous jammer in terms of points scored, trips through the pack, and skaters passed. The previous jammer becomes a non-pivot blocker. If the star pass occurs illegally, both skaters retain their existing roles. So what makes an illegal star pass? Releasing the star into the grasp of a skater other than the pivot, releasing the star into the pivot's grasp while either of the two skaters is down, out of bounds, out of play, or en route to the penalty box, releasing the star into the pivot's grasp while the pivot is in cue for the penalty box, releasing the star into the grasp of a pivot who is not wearing the stripe. The initiator of an illegal star pass that impacts the game should be penalized. If the pivot comes into control of the star through any means other than a legal star pass, they will be warned that they are not the jammer. The pivot may not put the star on their own helmet, but they may hold the star in their hand, drop it, or return it to the jammer. Only the jammer or pivot may recover or control the star. Let's take a look at how this might work out in an actual bout. So the jammer does not get lead, so they take the star off of their helmet and hold it in their hand. The cover goes into the pivot's hand. The cover is shared by both skaters at this point. When the jammer releases the cover, now that jammer is a blocker, and the pivot is now the jammer. Some things to keep in mind. Both jammer and pivot must be in the engagement zone. Neither the jammer or pivot can be down. Neither jammer nor pivot can be out of bounds. Well, what about straddling? Straddling the line is not in bounds, so you cannot pass the star if one of the two skaters, the jammer or the pivot, is straddling the line. So let's talk about the star stash. The jammer removes the helmet cover and uses this threat of a star pass to force the opposing blockers to also cover the pivot. This is a move that often will allow the jammer to get out or allow the pivot to get in play or get out. So this can open up holes for the jammer. Or if the blockers continue to focus on the jammer, the pivot may have an easy lane to exit if the pass happens. It is designed to confuse the opposing team. And it also can fool the referees as well. So just keep that in mind. But first things first, if you don't become lead jammer, take that star off your helmet so you can be ready to either get out away from the blockers and put it back on and continue on, or you're ready to pass it to the pivot. Some scenarios. The first scenario occurs more often than we would like to think. So the dropped star. So the jammer takes off the helmet cover and becomes an inactive jammer. While trying to pass the cover, it is dropped. It can be recovered by either the jammer or the pivot. Those are the only two players that can pick up a dropped star. But if the pivot picks it up, the pivot cannot put it on their helmet. This would be an illegal star pass because it didn't go from hand to hand. The jammer and pack referees will need to note that has happened and the jammer and the pivot retain their original positions. The pivot can return the cover back to the jammer, or she could hold it for the remainder of the jam. and then at that point, there is no jammer. So if there is a dropped star, the jammer can pick it up, put it on their head, they're still the jammer. The jammer can pick it up, pass it to the pivot. The pivot could pick it up, pass it back to the jammer. Jammer puts it on, they're the jammer, or the jammer can pass it back to the pivot. Scenario 2, the thrown cover. The star needs to be passed from hand to hand. So a thrown star is an illegal star pass. But the pivot can pick it up, but they can't put it on. They can return it to the jammer, same as before. They could throw it back to the jammer if they would like, but a star pass has not occurred. And it is really important to keep in mind, other blockers cannot recover the helmet cover. It doesn't matter the scenario. If you are not a pivot or a jammer, do not pick it up. Scenario number 3. If the jammer is out of play, if the pivot is out of play, a star pass cannot occur. All right. If the jammer passes the star to the pivot and the pivot is out of play, the star needs to go back to the jammer. Finally, hiding the helmet cover. There's a difference between blatantly hiding the cover or just having a cover that's hidden. So if you blatantly hide it, such as putting it in your pocket or under the jersey, you will be penalized. If you're inadvertently hiding it, such as a full fist, you're covering it, or not having much of it shown out of your hand, the refs are likely to give you a warning, and then you just change your position on holding the star, let some of it dangle out so that it can be seen. Final reminders for jammers. In practicing games, take off the star if you don't get lead, and then be ready for help from the pivot. Make sure you keep your head up and you don't get stuck in that blocking wall. Help from the pivot could be offense. They may be able to just come by, provide a little offense, and you're able to skate through. If that happens and you have the helmet cover in your hand as you're skating around to the pack, you have to put it back on your helmet. So skate, put it back on your helmet before you reach the pack again. Help from the pivot could also look like a star pass. Pass the star low to avoid coming into contact with the opposing blockers' heads. That would be a penalty. Don't pass the star if the pivot is behind the blockers too, or in a worse position than you. It does absolutely no good to put the pivot in a worse situation than you're in. And then once the star is passed, the jammer needs to be ready to be a blocker. If you pass that star, you are immediately a blocker. I would also like to encourage you, if you are pushing on a wall and you pass the star, keep pushing on the wall. Don't let up. Let the other team think that you're still the jammer. You're still jamming. And that could give just a couple seconds for the pivot to get out of the pack and get the star on their head. So keep jamming a little bit. Give the pivot a chance to go, and then be ready to block the opposing jammer that's coming. You are now joining that blocking group, and you are a blocker. I hope this helps. Have a great day.